Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Sovereign's non-meta tournament number 4, and this is all of the deck profiles. Well, not all of them, just the deck profiles that didn't top, but it's pretty much just tradition for me to do all of the deck profiles at the end of the tournament anyways. So if you are interested in seeing the deck profiles that actually top this tournament, go ahead and check the what I posted last week. There should be 6 different deck profiles from all of the 6 players who made it into Top Cut. So this deck profile I have for you right here is 7th place. And this is what TK Bear took, and it is Heroes, and he is on a little bit different of a list from what he played in the second tournament. He did play in the second tournament, and he got 2nd place, and I think, honestly, this list is better than his first try at it, because he is playing some other options which I think are really good techs, being Neos Fusion, which is insane. Just being able to get access obviously into Rainbow Neos after you combo is really good, especially because you can just bait everything out with your normal hero cards and then just slap the field with the Neos Fusion, summon a Rainbow Neos, and then you can basically OTK from there typically. It's just like such a good card. And then also he's on the Adusted Gold engine, so this is a really nice follow-up as well, just because you can search it with Stratos or Shadow Mist, and then you have a follow-up for the next turn into a Bane, or even for that turn to get into the Bane. So it's like so good. I think that he could have played it a little bit better if you watch some of the feature matches. He obviously could have played this deck just slightly better, and I think it would have won him a couple matches and possibly would have got him into Top Cut. But realistically, the only reason he didn't make it into Top Cut is because he had some bad tiebreakers. He was tied with me into Top Cut, and I got 6th place, so if we just switched, then obviously he would have made it, but his tiebreakers were just a little bit worse than mine, so he didn't make it. Next, we have Nightmare, who played Infernoble Zephyra. Like, it's a really interesting list, and I will make the quick disclaimer here that this isn't 100% his list, because he didn't play Crusader in his list, and I honestly don't know what he played instead of the Crusader, but this is very, very close to what he played. I think he played a second copy of Gate Zero. I could be wrong, but I think that's what he played. I'm not too sure. Maybe it was Dark Worm instead, actually. I think it was one of these 2 cards, but I don't remember. And I don't think he was on Abductors in his initial list either. But this is like a rough idea of what his list was, because it's not 100% this. He just made some changes, and then I went to go copy the deck, and it was changed. And then I tried asking him, but he forgot. But yeah, if you don't see the initial synergy in this deck, it's basically Zephyr Nui plus Zephraxi, and then you can make Charles. And so that's a Synchro 9, which is really nice since it's into your Infernoble engine, so you can start getting your equips. And yeah, it's a really, really good list. I do really enjoy this list. I think it's a really cool deck in general. He always brings something very unique and very interesting to the table, and this time is no exception. Moving on into 9th place, we have Hexagon, who played Witchcrafter, and I think he was also tied with me and TK Bear and Nightmare. I'm not too sure on that, but I believe up until 9th place we were tied. So yeah, he played Witchcrafter obviously, and I think this list is very cool also. I think that just Spell Chronicle is insane, banishing your whole hand, and then you can also match it with Patronus or whatever to get all of the Witchcrafter spells that you banished off of Spell Chronicle back in your hand. I think that's insane value and it's super niche or whatever, but I still think that it's pretty broken. And Magician Souls is also really nice, just being able to cycle through a lot of your spell cards, especially Mentalfoes Fusion is really nice to draw when you have Souls, which is kind of ironic. And then obviously the card he's sending with Souls is a Golem Maruru. And yeah, I'm not too sure exactly what Witchcrafter decks look like, but I'm assuming this is kind of a standard list outside of maybe Spell Chronicle. I don't think that's in typical Spellcrafter lists, but that's just my thought, I guess. I'm not too sure on that, but I think that this isn't a standard card. Moving on into 10th place, we have Hiromaster, who played Lord of the Red Turbo, or I guess a Red Eyes deck. So this deck is really crazy. just being able to like tutor out Lord of the Red is like so broken. This is like a Ghost Ogre, the ritual monster. I can activate twice per turn, hitting monsters and spells and traps. They're both once per turn, but you can do both in the same turn, if that makes sense. So it's like really good, and it doesn't have to be face up cards. It can just be face down or face up. It can be whatever. So it's like really good, way better than Ghost Ogre, and it's a ritual monster, so it's a little harder to summon. And sometimes this deck like bricks quite hard, but yeah, that's like the ultimate goal of this deck, which is really funny. And I think he like, honestly, for playing like a strict meme deck, I think he did pretty well. And yeah, I think it was something really cool. So yeah, moving on into 11th place, we had Snapple plays, who was on Madolche. So Madolche has some lists, some hits in the non-meta tournament, which is Penixessor to 1 and Tiramisu to 0. So I believe he must have just took out the Tiramisus that were initially in his list. I don't know, because he's on 13 cards in his extra deck, so he might have just took those out of his list and submitted his deck list. And he's not on any cards in the side deck, which is really strange since he's maining Dark Ruler No More and 2 copies of Kaiju's, the Humongous Kaiju. So it was really strange to me seeing this list, just because like he isn't on a side deck at all. So I feel like these will be dead in like some matchups, like especially against like Trap Tricks, I guess. I don't know. I guess this has like use against Trap Tricks, but I don't know. Just against like more back row decks, these seem to be like extremely dead, but that's just my opinion on that. I think that he should be playing a side deck and maybe like 2 other cards in his extra deck. And I feel like he might have actually had like a better chance at like doing, getting into Top Cut or something, but yeah. Next, we have Spooky Boy, who played Fire Fists, and I think that there are some spicy techs in this list. Most notably, like the Ritual Monster. I don't think they play this in Fire Fists, but like realistically, I don't know what Fire Fists look like naturally in the TCG. But I think that this is kind of like an interesting choice, and so I do like that. I think that this is like really cool that he's opting to play a Ritual Monster. Obviously, the Fusion Monster is pretty good from my experience. I think that it's basically like a Trident in like the battle phase, which I think is pretty cool. And I don't think like other than that, I think it's a pretty standard list. I mean, I don't know what Fire Fists typically look like, but yeah, he's also playing like a Zodiac engine, being the Chaka Knight and the Trident, so you could just make 2 level 4s to make Chaka Knight and then a Trident on top. They're Beast Warriors, so they should have like synergy with the entire deck for the most part, and then you can also like pop cards with Trident, obviously. So yeah. Moving on into 13th place, we had Lazy Mike, which he played a Rocket deck, and it's basically like the structure deck. There's not really much else to explain about that. I think it's 2 copies of it, because if we sort this out, he's on 2 copies of Tracer, not 3, which is a little weird. Obviously, he's playing a lot of like the structure deck cards, so I don't know. I think this might be his real life deck. I'm not 100% on that, but yeah, he did like okay. I think he won a game or 2, so I don't know. Next, we have Goofy Ghost, who played Metal Foes. So I think he's going to be really excited for the Metal Foes support coming up, obviously. But yeah, so one of the most like crazy things that I'm noticing right here is obviously Super Poly. So if you don't know, if you're not familiar with Metal Foes, like the entire deck of Metal Foes, they have Super Poly targets, which are Crimsonite. So all you need is a Metal Foes, and you can fuse anything on your opponent's field that has 3,000 or less attack. So that's pretty much like almost all the monsters in the game, like except for like some boss monsters and stuff like that. But like it's so good just being able to like normal summon a Metal Foes, or even just leave it in your hand and super poly it out. Or I guess you have to fuse it on field, but you can normal summon it and then just immediately super poly their field away, just any 2 monsters that they have, and it's just like so good. But yeah, I think for the most part this is a fairly like basic, standard deck list. Eccentric Archfiend is really interesting that he's opting to put this in the main deck, but this is really nice. It was really good in Master Rule 3 just because you can normal summon it, or even like put it in your Pendulum Scale, pop it, pop a spell trap, and then Pendulum summon it back out, and then pop another monster. So it was like really cool to get 2 interruptions with Eccentric Archfiend just for free. It was a really nice card in Master Rule 3. And then obviously Clearfort Scout, just to get into the Infinity package. So I did tell him to cut this down to 1 because we were talking about this a little like before the tournament, but like realistically he could probably play 2 or 3 copies of this, because like It does suck to see in multiples, but at the same time, you can still like combo with it because you can still just have it as an extra body for fusion material, or you can just, you know, pendulum summon 2 of this and then just make an infinity anyways. So it's not really like it's that big of a deal. And obviously the monolith is just an absolute break. You never want to see this. But yeah, I think that for the most part, this is like a pretty standard list. I think there are some cool little tech options like the eccentric Jarkavine, like I said, and I think this list is pretty decent. Yeah, there's not really much else for me to say about that. Moving into 15th place, we have Wolf, who played Melodious. So this is pretty much identical to the list he played in the third non-event tournament. I think the only change that was made from my memory is that Judgment went from 3 to 2, so I think one of those was cut, and I think that Extravagance went from 2 to 1, so that he put a copy of Upstart Goblin in as the extra like draw power. So if you are curious as to how this deck works, I would highly recommend you go check out those like tournaments or whatever. I don't think he played this deck exactly optimally, but like the idea of this deck is pretty much to make Bloom Harmonist and then also make like a Shuberta. And you just get like a ton of searches with Eva to search all of your heralds. So you just have like infinite gates in your hand and like a pretty decent board with your like your Shuberta and then like a Sonata to boost it. So like there's some pretty cool interruptions, especially since this is like a triple DD Crow, which is also really nice. But I don't think there's really much else to say about this. Like I think that it's a really cool list. How like having Eva searching for all of your heralds is like so good. But yeah, that's just me personally on that list. So then we have the Kimfang, who played, he got 16th place and he played Galaxy. So unfortunately, he got pretty unlucky and he bricked like a lot of his games, and he couldn't make some of the other games that he played just because he had like, you know, things going on. So unfortunately he didn't do very good, but I think that this list is actually pretty good from like my experience. I think that this is like pretty good. It's a little weird that he's on just 2 copies of Photon Sanctuary. I think this is like an instant rank or link 2, and you can't summon except for lights, and your entire deck is light. So I don't think there's any reason to play any less than 3. I think that that's really important. I think he's on quite a lot of hand traps as well, which I don't think is really important. I think he could cut down a play set maybe of like the Ghost Ogres or Veilers, or at least like switch them out into the side for something. It's also really interesting he's on 3 copies of Delta in the side deck, which I don't know if that ever came up. He's also on a copy of Upstart Goblin in 44 cards, which is really strange, but I think it's just because of desires. So if you'd rather banish an Upstart Goblin than, I don't know, Photon Orbital or Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. So that makes sense why I guess this is here with the desires in the deck. It's just like a blank card in the list, which makes sense. Moving on to 17th place, we had Austin, who played Time Thief. And this is, I guess, very similar to my list. He didn't do as well just because I believe he had a lot of things going on. So I think he dropped out like round 2 or round 3. I think he could have done a lot better if he just stayed in the tournament for a couple more rounds. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that he could have done a little bit better just by staying for the rounds and playing, but unfortunately he had to go. So yeah, it's really interesting that he's actually on 3 copies of Redoer and 3 copies of Perpetua. I feel like this is a little bit overkill, just from my experience, but I don't know. It seemed to like do him pretty well for a couple games that he played, so it's pretty worth mentioning. Then we have Vhto, or Talks, I don't know. He didn't even play a game, unfortunately, but he had this Blue Eyes list, which I think is honestly a pretty solid Blue Eyes list. It's pretty standard, I guess. Like, I don't think there's much really else to say about it. I mean, like 3 copies of Trade-In can like discard a lot of cards, and you can, draw a lot of stuff. He's not on any copies of Cards of Consonance, which is completely fine as well. I guess like Dragon Shrine and like Whitestone of Legend isn't like super important. It doesn't seem like in this list, since it's like pure Blue Eyes, and he's playing a lot of the Synchro Monsters and stuff. I'm not sure if there's an effective way. Okay, so you actually can summon this by its own effect. Okay, I actually didn't know that. So I don't know. I think that this is a really cool deck. I do like it, just like Melody is insane as well. Just searching for Blue Eyes and alternative, or just 2 Blue Eyes or 2 alternative is also really nice. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. Those are all of the deck profiles from this tournament. I think that it was a lot of fun. And if you are interested in playing any of these decks in the tournament, just go ahead and join the Discord link in the description below. We host these tournaments fairly regularly, typically like once a month. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We play our own little ban list. If you are curious, I don't think I have it pulled up right now, but actually I think I do have the ban list pulled up like roughly right here, but yeah, this is like typically like what the ban list looks like for the 5th tournament that we are currently in. So it's been a lot of fun. I really like playing this, and it's just a really fun format, I think, and hopefully a lot of you guys enjoy it. And I will see you guys hopefully in the Discord.